Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Bryce with SetOverSetPoker, and today we are going to be doing another hand history review. It seemed to be that a lot of people liked the previous video that we had done, and I am going to be doing a second one here and hopefully making a normal habit of this. I feel like it's the best way to study from my experience. So the topic that we're going to be focusing on today is going to be similar to the last one, which is going to be value betting. Generally, I try to focus on value betting because I think that knowing what your weakest value bet in certain spots is very, very valuable. That way you know exactly how much you should be betting and what hands that you could possibly be betting with. So we're going to get right into the action. The situation we're going to be focusing on today is going to be middle position opens. We are on the button. We decide to 3-bet. Middle position calls and how to proceed after that spot. Alright, so we'll get right into it. So middle position is going to be opening a range like this, around 20%. This particular player is going to be opening a little bit wider, just because he's going to be choosing a smaller sizing. 2.5x, but if he's going to be opening 3x, it's going to be a little bit of a smaller range, but maybe it won't be this, maybe it won't be this or this, but I think that for the most part it should mostly be around 20%, so we're just going to choose this. So we're on the button and we decide to 3-bet, and we're going to be 3-betting a range like this. That's actually our bluffing range, and then this is our value range added in. So about 8% of the time we're going to be 3-betting middle position when middle position opens. Each of these hands that have a color by it are weighted. The green is 75% of the time we'll 3-bet that. The gray is 40% of the time we'll 3-bet that, and then the yellow is 20% of the time we'll 3-bet that. So we 3-bet middle position when he opens using this type of range, and then we are going to pick out middle position's calling range. Middle position's calling range is going to be something like this. They're going to be 4-betting, aces, kings, sometimes ace king, but I haven't really seen a lot of that on this site. And then potentially the wheel aces are going to be his bluffing range, but we're actually not going to be factoring those in because those are 4-bets and our opponent is calling. So our opponent is going to call, and the hand that I have prepared for today is going to be this type of flop. Queen, Jack, 6, rainbow. So we get to the flop. Flop is Queen, Jack, 6, rainbow board. And basically what we're going to be trying to figure out is what is our weakest value bet. So we're going to start with our top pair hands. Our first top pair hand is going to be King, Queen of Spades. And here we can see that King, Queen of Spades, well, yeah, actually, that's right. King, Queen of Spades is going to have something like 37% equity. What we are looking for in this spot is going to be hands that have between 50 and 60% equity. On the flop, you need to have higher equity than you need on the turn, generally, because you have to play turns and rivers. So something like 50 to 60 on average equity. Now this is assuming our opponent is a decent thinking reg. Against weaker players, we can basically value bet wider. They will have a lot weaker hands. They're going to have hands like this, they're going to have this, they're going to have this. Once they start having hands like that, you're going to have a lot higher equity. So that being said, they're not going to be using those particular hands. So we are going to be looking at King, Queen. So we see that King, Queen only has 37% equity versus our opponent's range. So King, Queen is definitely not going to be a value bet. The only hands that we beat are Queen, Jack, and that's basically it at this point. He's going to continue, well actually that's not true. He's going to continue with Middle pair, I wish that we could weight this, but we can't. He's going to continue with hands like, let's see, 10s, 9s, 8s. Yeah, probably something like that. 10s, 9s, and 8s. So we can go ahead and remove all of this and then just do weak pair. Let's assume it's going to be like that, then add in a weak pair. So actually when you add in the weak pairs that he's going to be calling, 10s probably, maybe not 9s though, or maybe like 50% of 9s. Let's do here, weight this down to 50%, and then weight 9s. So actually, I was wrong. It looks like our opponent's going to have 45% equity versus a value bet with King, Queen of Spades. So we are going to go ahead and mark that as 54% equity. Now we get to Ace, Queen of Spades. Ace, Queen of Spades is going to have 62% equity, so that is clearly a value bet. And we can even do... Let's do it without a backdoor flush draw. Yeah, it's going to have about 60% of equity. I am working on a notepad next to this, writing down all of the equities so we can review the video whenever we get finished. So we're going to be value betting King, Queen. We're going to be value betting... Oh man, we need to get rid of... Actually, I think 7-6 and 6-5... Okay. Yeah, 7-6 and 6-5 won't call. It makes it a little bit tougher with this particular program. With Card Runners EV, it's a bit easier just because you can filter out certain hands. So King, Queen of Spades is going to be close. It's 50%. And then King, Queen of Diamonds is going to be a little bit less, 48%. So we'll mark that at 48%. So that would probably be a check back a lot of the time. But we can value bet it versus weaker players. Then Ace, Queen of Diamonds, we're going to have 57%. And the diamonds basically means we don't have a backdoor flush draw, so we can't turn any more. I mean, we can turn equity with the 10 or a king or an ace or a queen, but as far as flush draws, we don't have that. Then our aces are going to be 62% equity. So we can value bet aces, we can value bet ace queen, and sometimes value bet king queen suited. Clearly queen jack is going to be a value bet, 71%. So our weakest value bet on the flop is going to be ace queen versus our opponent's range. They're going to be calling with 10s, 9s about half the time. They're always going to call with 10-9, which is their open ender, and they're always going to call with jack 10. Yeah, that looks about right. They won't have king 10 suited. They'll have king jack suited some amount of the time, but even then, I mean, it doesn't really change the equity too much. But we're going to assume that this is their calling range here. So now we're going to go ahead and look at the turn. So the turn here is a 9 of clubs. And I have gone over this before, but there are still going to be some things that I'm going to miss. So hopefully I can be able to catch it here on this video and make this video a helpful thing for all new players trying to, or even good players who are trying to improve. These types of study skills are really important. Doing something like this 20 minutes a day, just going over one hand is really valuable. So this is generally how I study. I get asked a lot how I study, and this would generally be how I would approach that spot. So on a 9 of clubs turn, I'm going to go ahead and take out his middle pairs. Go ahead and take out the weak pairs. We're going to start looking at our value bets. So he still won't have any straights. Yeah, I don't think he should have any straights. He'll have top set, middle set. He will have some bottom sets that turn a set on the make a set on the turn. And he's going to have ace-jack suited, so he's going to have one flush draw. And that should be about it. So we're going to go ahead and look at king-queen suited first. King-queen suited is definitely not going to be a value bet on the turn. We're going to have about 40% equity. And on the turn, on the flop, you need about 50 to 60% equity to value bet, leaning towards 60%. Taking a closer percentage to 50, meaning taking a lower percentage if the player is a weaker player. So king-queen suited is definitely not going to be a value bet. And versus a weaker player, you can obviously value bet wider. Versus a stronger player, you're going to want to have some strong hands to check back on the flop. So if you have king-queen, check back on the flop, he leads the turn, you can call turn and decide what you want to do on the river. It gives you the ability to call turns and rivers and not just be, if an opponent knows that you only value bet if an opponent knows that you always bet top pair, then when you check back, you're basically saying you have ace-jack or jack-10 or something very weak. But you want to have, you know, aces, kings, king-queen, ace-queen sometimes in your check-back range. I would generally choose that on backdoor flush draws. So if I had king-queen of spades, I might check king-queen of spades back because we block his weaker hands that can call, his two spade hands. Yeah, king-9, ace-king, stuff like that that can turn flush draws that is more than happy to call, or more than happy to, yeah, call a c-bet. So basically that means that when you have hands that block backdoor flush draws, you should probably choose those as your check-back hands if you want to have strong hands like king-queen, ace-queen, aces, kings as your check-back range. Queens is a perfectly reasonable check-back sometimes here. I'm not saying you should be checking back all of these hands, but you do want to make sure you have some strong hands in your flop check-back range. Otherwise, you're just giving up too much, and they'll know that if you check back that they can just barrel you on the turn. So king-queen is not a value bet here. We'll go ahead and look at ace-queen. Even ace-queen is not really a value bet here on the turn. Ace-queen is going to have 45% equity. King-queen is going to have 40% equity. We can go to aces and see what aces look like. Aces are 53% equity, so aces are definitely going to be a value bet here, especially without a club. With a club, it's probably going to be a little bit lower. Yeah, with a club, we're going to be blocking his hands, ace-jack, so he's not going to have quite as many flush draws that he can call on the turn that we beat. And on the turn, his equity is going to be quite low with a flush draw. He's only going to hit it 20% of the time, so we want those hands to call. With incorrect odds, we're never going to give him 4-1, which is what he needs. So anytime he calls the turn with a flush draw, he's going to be losing money on that call. And then we can shut down on some club rivers, depending on how this guy is playing. So let's go ahead and look at queen-jack of diamonds. Queen-jack of diamonds is going to be 65% equity. So the threshold is going to be aces there. Aces is going to be 53% equity. Queen-jack is going to be 65% equity. Jack-9 is actually going to be a very good value betting hand. Just because it's going to give him more top pairs. So top pair is 15. Yeah, we take a third of his top pairs away when we have Queen-Jack as top 2 pair. But when you have Jack-9, and that is in our 3 betting range, yeah, you allow him to have more top pair hands that we beat. So because Jack-9 allows him to have about 30% more top pairs, or 50% more top pairs, 10 top pair combos with Queen-Jack, and then 15 top pair combos with Jack-9. I think that Jack-9 would be a really, really good value bet there. So that would be the threshold, is aces in this spot. And aces without a club is going to be a really, really good value betting hand, right on the threshold, basically. So now we're going to get to the river. For practice purposes, we're going to pick a non-club, but we're going to pick kind of an interesting card. We're going to pick the King of Spades. This is what I reviewed it with when I ran it on random, and King of Spades came up, and I think that that's a really interesting card. It makes it very hard to value bet this river just because there's 4 to a straight. He doesn't have many 10x if you look here. He has 10-9, which gets to the river. He has Jack-10, which gets to the river. So he's going to have some, he's going to have 4 combos of straights. Now that's assuming he doesn't have all of these hands, which if he does, then obviously that's not very good for us. But he's not going to have all of them. If he does have those pre-flop, he will always get to the river with them when he turns an open-ender, especially if he has a flush draw to go with it. So Jack-9 is not going to be a good value betting hand. It only has 36% equity. Yep, 36% equity. Queen-Jack is going to be even worse because then it blocks his ace-queens, which are the hands we want him to. If he decides to bluff catch, we need him to have ace-queens in his range. Yeah, so we take away 30% of his top pair hands whenever we have a queen in our hand. So Queen Jack, Jack 9 are definitely not value bets. Let's see King Queen. King Queen still not a value bet. That's 31% equity. Go ahead and mark that down. And then 2 queens is going to be 53% equity. Assuming that he calls with his middle pairs, assuming he calls with his 2 pairs, which he might not even do. We'd have to choose a small sizing on this river, actually, because he's not going to have many hands that can call. He's going to have a range that's mostly made up of straights and nothing else. Yeah, because he has pocket 10s as well. So pocket 10s, Jack 10, and Queen 9. Yep. So pocket queens is going to be 53% equity. So probably the weakest value bet is maybe pocket queens. Make a small sizing with pocket queens, but generally you would just want to be betting a 10 here. And I would choose a small, on this river, I would choose a small sizing with any hand that we had. We actually have more straights in our range because our range is something like this, where we have all of the ace 10s, king 10s, queen 10s. With this particular range, so if you plug in this particular range, we have quite a few. We have as many straights as him. We have 2 pairs. We're going to actually have all of this as well. Yeah, we're going to have a stronger range than him. But generally, the equities are going to run pretty even, so I would tend to choose a smaller sizing in this spot, is what I would do based on his range equity. And we can go over that concept later. And then obviously, like, Jack 10 is going to just be a snap value bet with 90% equity. So probably the cutoff would be 2 queens. Now, if we had pocket kings, let's see. Yeah, pocket kings is actually a lot stronger hand because we still let him have all of his ace queens that he can bluff catch down with. He keeps all of his sets of queens, his sets of jacks, his queen jacks, and his king queen. He has 1 combo of that. So probably pocket kings is going to be our best value betting hand that isn't a straight. So let's look at some bluffs. So what would we want to bluff this river with? We want to have hands that block his straights, basically. And if this range is correct, which, let it be known that this range is not going to apply to everybody. Everybody is not going to be this tight. There are going to be people who have, you know, all of these hands in there, this hand in there, that hand in there. Yeah, there are going to be people who have all that in there, and it's probably not bad to have all that in there, but the idea behind this video is not simply to say every opponent has this exact range. The idea behind this video is simply to explain how to study and how to approach these spots and how to solve for these spots. So when we do get to the river and we decide we want to bluff, our best bluffing hands are going to be hands that block straights. So if all of his straights are 10-9 and Jack-10, we want to have a hand that has a 9 in it, maybe like 9-8. Blocks one of his straights. Or a hand like Jack-9. Blocks two of his straights. If I was going to be bluffing, then those would be the particular hands that I would bluff. I think that you could turn Jack-9 into a bluff in the sense that our opponent's not going to have a lot of one pair hands. Our opponent's going to have ace-queen, and that's what we're hoping. But they're going to have a lot of they're going to have king-queen. They're going to have jack-queen. Yeah, and they're going to have some sets. And so we can basically try and bluff them off those hands, but that's about it. Otherwise, we pretty much aren't going to be betting this river a ton, and if we do, we're going to pick a smaller sizing for our value bets and bluffs. So, that being said, let's go to our notepad. So here we look at a hand. The button 3 bets first middle position. The board is Queen Jack 6, 9 of clubs, King of spades. On that particular run out, on the flop, when it's Queen Jack 6, our weakest value bet is going to be Ace Queen with 57% equity. Now we're going to be checking back some of those stronger hands, King Queen, Ace Queen, some amount of the time, just so our opponent can't bet into us on every turn and exploit us. Then when we get to the turn, it's going to be the 9 of clubs. Our weakest value bet in that spot is no longer going to be Ace Queen, it's going to be aces. And we're going to have lower equity with the Ace of clubs in our hand because our opponent is going to have some flush draws with the Ace of clubs and an Ace Jack of clubs, particularly being that hand that we block, which is a hand that we want to be able to beat. And then obviously Queen Jack, Jack 9 suited are value betting hands. And then on the river, when we get the king, we're basically going to be looking at the only value bet that is not a straight can be a king, pocket kings, and we're going to choose a small sizing with that. We actually wouldn't bet the turn with kings, I don't think. Yeah. Let me actually look at that real quick. Let's see if we do bet the turn with kings. On the flop, yeah. We're actually be betting the flop with kings. The turn is the 9 of clubs. Be betting the turn with kings. And then we can bet the river with kings. So that is my hand analysis for that particular scenario, and I hope this helps you. Doing this and trying to lay out what hands you should be value betting, what hands you could potentially bluff, I think is a really good strategy, and it should help everybody with their game and help them improve. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat below or in the comment section below. I will answer them and see if I can help. That being said, I'm going to keep trying to post these videos. If you have feedback, if there's a particular hand you would like me to go over, I'd be more than happy to do that. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I will see you in the stream. Thanks everybody.